Hi, this is Dizzy. I'm going to be reviewing the movie Music. That's hard to say. By Sia. Everyone knew this was going to happen who follows me. But if you are new to my channel and are here to hear some angry review, you're in the wrong place. I am diagnosed as being on the autistic spectrum. I was diagnosed originally with Asperger's syndrome. My diagnosis, obviously now, is Autism 1. My diagnosis has been confirmed around 5 or 6 times from the original diagnosis. I also have it dyscalculia, which is math disorder, ADD, sensory processing issues, and selective mutism. So that's all very nice. Oh, and I have insomnia, which I think is related to being on the spectrum. And I've been active in the autism acceptance movement for about a decade, which is about as long as I've been on the spectrum. So I was diagnosed as an adult, but just barely. The movie actually ends with, and I know I'm starting with the end here, but it ends with music's world created by Sia. So, like I thought when I first started listening to Sia years ago, and like what I thought was going on when I heard about the movie, I feel like she was kind of trying to come out of the autism closet, so to speak, as some people call it. And the community collectively spat in her face and then got mad because she used an avatar that she's used in all her music, Maddie, to represent herself, and used that in the movie a little bit, even though Sia is clearly not the same presentation as the character Music. Anyway, since everyone is very pro self-diagnosis out there, before you get all clackety in the comments about how I can't diagnose Sia, I'm not diagnosing her. I've always speculated she might be on the spectrum because of the type of choreography, the type of the lyrics, and the fact that she hid from the public for so long, and how much work she actually does. I feel like she might be. And this movie just kind of made me rethink that she is likely somewhere on the spectrum. If you really like self-diagnosing and saying everyone's valid, then calm down in the comments before we get started, okay? Okay, so there's like a whole lot of plot in this movie. And I'll touch on it, but obviously I'm going to focus on the character Music because she's the character who is on the spectrum. They don't even make it super clear that she's autistic. Like, they don't run around saying, autistic, autistic, she's autistic. She's a special needs girl. Although it's been made clear by Sia she's autistic. So Kate Hudson's character is Zoo. Not Sue, Zoo, as in kazoo, the instrument. And Leslie Odom Jr. Plays Ebo, and I feel like I'm saying that wrong, even though I heard it in the movie. My accent really makes some things come out weird. He plays Burr in Hamilton, so I was excited he was in the movie anyway. It opens with Music actually putting on pants, and it immediately turns into one of the music videos, which is part of the film. I generally only watch nonfiction stuff or horror, but I was excited for the music videos to be in the movie as a way to show her thoughts, because I've said over and over, trying to explain things to like my husband or on YouTube videos to a lesser extent, how my mind works, and it's very similar. Maybe mine's not as childish and fun as some of hers end up being, but it's close. It's very close. It opens with her putting on pants, and it goes into a song that most definitely represents the sensory change of putting on clothes. I mean, I was literally sitting there with my kid and my husband, and I was like, yeah, that's how I too feel like that when there's, when I'm having to put the elastic band around my pants, no matter how big the pants are. It also zooms in on the fact that she has to wear Velcroed shoes a few times, and I bet people were offended by that. I can't tie my shoes, so thanks, Sia. Also, in that scene, she's hitting her legs, which apparently some people are angry about. And I just don't understand how everyone's sitting here saying, I'm autistic, but you don't relate to pants feeling like spikes sometimes, or socks at least. The seams on socks. Come on, y'all. Come on. Music lives with her grandmother, and she gets eggs and bacon every morning, gets her hair braided. She can speak a little bit, but she's mostly nonverbal, and, you know, it's clear her routine's very important. She can read. It's unclear, like, if she can do math or how much math she can do. Someone follows her to pay for her things on the walk, and he is important to the plot later. At least somewhat, largely important. But I don't know if she can not pay for things on her own because it's a social issue, or if it's a math issue. Quite frankly, I understand both sides of that. I really don't like paying for things with cash. Counting coins, y'all. So, honestly, either one. I can't order my own food. I mean, I can, but I would prefer not to. And if I do, I'm done for the day. Music displays sarcasm multiple times in the movie. There's a death early in the movie, and how she handles that is pretty realistic for someone who is that presentation of autistic. It's not that she doesn't react. She sits down and is very uncomfortable with the fact that something has changed and it's something bad. She knows what it is. They later show a flashback to this that's very synesthesia inspired. So, that was interesting. So, music is a presentation of autism that I'm actually not. I find the character extremely relatable, but I know I am not the same presentation of autism that she is. And a lot of the people who are angry about this movie aren't either. This movie was never supposed to be like some beacon of autism movies. There are multiple characters going through multiple things. There's a lot of focus on special needs and that type of thing, obviously. But this was not an autism movie for autistics to autismly feel safe everywhere. It was not. There's some uncomfortable stuff in here. You know, Sia just stated basically that she's autistic and special needs. You can be both, or you can be one or the other. And this character happens to be both. Whether someone like me has special needs is up for debate. I was in advanced reading classes and math lab. Like, I've got a very uneven skill set. A lot of us do. Talking or not. How well we talk or not. Socializing well or not. I also find it interesting that there's a moment where she's reading Leslie Odom Jr.'s character through a slit in a doorway, and she can read other people's emotions to a degree, even though she can't really, like, show her own that well. I see a lot more empathy in this character than I see a lot of people in the autism community who are very loud. Like, multiple times in the movie, she's able to see how people feel and then use her thing that states emotions to display that characteristic. She reads her sister's emotions. Her sister actually lacks empathy a lot at the beginning and actually all the way to the end. The sister has a meltdown that looks almost like she's on the spectrum. I wonder what they were hinting at there. And makes a few decisions that make you wonder if she's not a cluster B character at least a little bit, if she might be on the spectrum but in a completely different presentation again. But her character is also hilarious, so there's that. There's a strong plot line in here about Leslie's character and Kate Hudson's character and their personal issues. So that's a lot of the movie. If y'all wanted a pure autism movie, you're like really out of luck here. This is not it. But if you have meltdowns and have a very visual mind, people don't understand and wanted representation, this might be something you like. There's a guy also who has special needs who's in the story, and he follows music and pays for stuff on her walks, which, again, I'm not quite sure which, or if it's both, money issue or social issue, why she doesn't pay for her own stuff. Probably both. A lot of you want to claim you have too much empathy, but you can't even empathize with people who have a different presentation of autism than you because you want to see yourself on screen so bad. And that you don't think an autistic character can be in a movie as well as have some focus on caregivers. People handling us wrong is realistic. And whether Leslie Odom Jr.'s character handled it wrong is up for debate to some people. Kate Hudson obviously did not know what she was doing. The character. Zoo didn't. You know, art does not come bubble wrapped unless you get it from my Etsy. The restraint scenes did not bother me. They basically seem to encourage a hug box like approach to it. Me and my husband call it the weighted husband blanket, because he just will lay on me like a weighted blanket, and we just started calling it that for some reason. So I'm not really sure about the restraint scenes making everyone upset. I know everyone should be approached differently with that. Everyone acted like it was going to be medical restraints. Everyone was like, I was so triggered. And I'm like, you know, you can be triggered and all, but it was basically just being held, like hugged. I would prefer it not be, if someone needs to be in front of me so I can see them, but if you'd prefer to explain to everyone you run into why you have 2 black eyes you gave yourself, I mean, you can get investigated for that type of stuff if you want to walk around with bruises that you've given yourself and then proceed to explain to someone that you gave them to yourself. Or if you lie and say someone else gave them to you. Being restrained when you're having a meltdown is not fun. What is the other option? I have a friend whose brother is a grown man and he does the same thing. Like, a lot of us hit our heads. A lot of us do things that can be interpreted as aggressive. Is he supposed to just be let loose like a bull in a china shop to hurt himself and everyone else? Or are you supposed to do the other thing in the most nice way you can? Which really depends on the person. So she has a public meltdown and recovers real quick. And that does happen. That does happen. I think that happens all up and down the spectrum. Anywhere on the spectrum that can happen. I mean, for a lot of people, that's an automatic, like, shutdown afterward, or exhaustion, like physical exhaustion. But that depends on how far it gets, like, for me. Also, I feel like people who have tantrums tend to get exhausted immediately after their tantrums, whereas people who have meltdowns tend to stop the meltdown and keep going. So, just a thought. I can definitely go from one to another quickly because, you know, they're not goal-oriented. If it's a sensory issue or an emotional issue that gets addressed really quick, then, you know, I don't have to spend days in bed collecting spoons, as many people like to say. That language was originally for lupus, just by the way, not autism. The spoon thing. I find it interesting how many people have screamed to me about the restraining scenes, also known as applying pressure. You know, what Temple Grandin said everyone should do, and then y'all gave me death threats for talking about Temple Grandin not being that great. Remember that? Remember that, y'all? Remember? Being triggering and all that. But y'all don't actually, I haven't seen anybody say the meltdowns were triggering. It's almost like y'all couldn't relate to them. I found the actual meltdown scenes a little upsetting, but that's just because if I'm watching something, sometimes I empathize with the character and I know how that feels, and it sucks, but I also don't really mind something in a film being kind of slightly upsetting, which is now the definition of triggering. So having someone seem to actively want to help someone in a meltdown did not trigger me, and it was actually quite nice. It was a nice change from, you know, electroshock. You know, even if they're not doing it quite correctly. Early in the movie, they show music opening a book, and it's about a dog, and later she's in her mind about this dog while looking at a light on the wall that somebody, the other kid that pays for her stuff, is shining through the wall. Dogs are her obsession. That's kind of hinted at it. And at the end of the movie, I don't want to spoil way too much of the plot that I'm not addressing, because I'm addressing mostly the autism stuff here. That same character that was entertaining her with the light when she was thinking about her dog obsession helps her to get a surprise service dog. I almost called it a Symbicort dog because I have asthma and take Symbicort, and it just, whoa. Symbicort dog. She gets a service dog, a surprise service dog, and that's one thing that happens at the end of the movie that's cute. And yeah, I'm willing to admit most of the movie's cute, even though I like horror. Because the sister does have kind of a dark personality, not in a bad way, but she's an addict, and she doesn't know what she's doing with music. The end of the movie does get, you start thinking, I started thinking, uh-oh, this is where it's going to get bad. Now I understand why everyone's going to get offended. But she doesn't go through with the thing, which was essentially what a lot of people are left to have to deal with, which is, do I put this person in a facility? That's a real problem. In my Classy Aspie book, I literally talk about the fact that I don't know how to address the facility versus taking care of someone issue, especially when you're a parent and you have a child and you are eventually going to die. That's a situation a lot of people are in. Like, come on, that's an actual problem, and y'all want to pretend it's not because you want to see some superhero-like figure that you can then complain about for being supremacist. You're going to complain either way, okay? So, leave your death threat below. Anyway, if you haven't seen the movie, please don't leave your crap. I don't really care. Anyway, if you haven't seen it, try to watch it. Get offended or don't. Argue with me or don't.